Oh, this came up early. Okay.
Here we go.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The weekend psychic weather.
Good evening and welcome to the first psychic weather report of 2022, and also a big one. It's an important one. I'll try to phrase my words so we avoid the censors or whatever. Anyway, it's one of these classic hermetic maxims, as above, so below, and it's something we need to pay attention in the zeitgeist and in the self and in the local environment. We've reached a Stalingrad type point. If you think in terms of 23 months ago, that was at the beginning of Operation Barbarossa, the Third Reich invasion of Soviet Union, and that continued on. Its objective was to get to Moscow. It failed in its objective, and instead it went down to the Caucasus to try and take the oil fields, and it got bogged down in Stalingrad, and it stayed there until the army group south of the Wehrmacht was wiped out, and that began the retreat towards Berlin, and which culminated in Walpurgis Night 1945, when Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his bunker. Apparently, it was the end of the Third Reich. In terms of the world situation right now, think in terms of the lockdown that happened back in early 2020 was Operation Barbarossa. That was them invading us. That was them moving and mobilizing, and we were taken by surprise. We were bewildered. We were shocked. They used a blitzkrieg of the needlecraft, of the terrors, of the programming, of the mind control, of the propaganda, and we weren't ready for that kind of warfare. And like what happened in 1941, the Red Army were overrun because they were facing something that they had no concept of how to deal with it. Well, that's been us. We had no concept of how to deal with what has happened between then and just before Christmas, when a change happened. A lot of their targets have now stopped, and they got bogged down in their own Stalingrad. Now, that doesn't mean we've beaten them. That means we've held them. We're holding them. And we've held them at this point. There's been very significant things have happened recently, and governments all around the world, but especially there was on the Joe Rogan show recently, a historical monumental interview happened, and that really was very similar to our Stalingrad, that finally we have a bit of a buffer, a wall has been put up, and it stops against this international crime syndicate that has been at us for the last 23 months. So they've hit Stalingrad. We now have to hit them back hard in the ways we know how, knowledge and things like memes, and not until we win the middle ground and get the people who are in the middle to actually join us, because I now believe they've actually collapsed. They won't get any further than they've got now. And the only way they could get further than they've got now is absolute viciousness. And it won't happen. And the fact that we have a deep state individual such as Dr. Malone coming on our side now and basically validating all our conspiracies about the last 23 months means that we've now dug them in, and they're dug in, and their winter is now coming. And it's what happened at Stalingrad was basically they surrendered eventually. They were cut off. They were surrounded in a pincer movement by the Red Army around the back of them. And a field marshal actually surrendered, and the Russians did not believe it was a field marshal. They had to get constant confirmation, because it was a tradition because of the Prussian tradition in the Wehrmacht, is that a field marshal captured takes his life. He doesn't surrender. Now this Malone guy is the equivalent of capturing a field marshal. We now have one of our big boys on our side. We can now start start beginning planning the counteroffensive and the move back to their Berlin bunker. Now, that's where we are now. Now, you will, because of the hermetic maxim of as above, so below, this will be echoed in your own life. You'll suddenly find that people who are involved in maybe a legal dispute, a bullying situation at work, things like this, you will find that it suddenly has come to a stop. And you're suddenly able to find the ability to catch your breath and move back. Because this is what's happened. It started just before Christmas. And it's now, if there's this genuine sense that the worst is over. But that doesn't mean the whole thing is over. It means we have to start a counterattack, an offensive. And this will be in your own life too. And this is where we are now at the psychic weather. It's actually a very important thing that's happening at the moment. In our personal lives, in the macrosphere, in the microsphere, we have dug in. We're now fighting a vicious hand-to-hand war up front, but we're now able to finally to fight. We weren't able to fight before. We were pushed back. And just like with Hitler at Stalingrad, they rolled the dice one too many, and they allowed their own egos to take over, thinking they were infallible. And they've slipped up now. And they're now actually doing some of the most appalling things, like doctors all over I don't want to say too much because of the censorship. Doctors all over the place are now being struck off lists for merely making suggestions that are common sense and standard medical practice. They're becoming extremely vicious because we now have a rat backed into a corner, a demonic rat, the crime syndicate, the global crime syndicate backed into the corner. And remember, the jinn in government buildings, the jinn encapsulated skin job in your government is also reflected by the jinn encapsulated skin job in your daily life. So always remember that. You should always look at what's at the top in the zeitgeist, and then always see that it's reflected in your own life, in personality things, and so on. And we're at that point now. We haven't won. We've turned the corner. And if you suddenly are wondering, why is that asshole at work stopped bugging me right now? Why has my family members who've been bugging me to get needlecraft have stopped? What's this all about? That's what's happened. We've dug a trench and bogged them down. Now we can push them back. Now there'll be fanatics who will fight to the very end, just like what happened in Berlin. But that doesn't matter. The war can slowly move back. Now, what this does is it gives the same thing I gave the Red Army: confidence. I gave them confidence that the indestructible army could be defeated. And that's what we have now. The indestructible globalist crime syndicate can be defeated. And we now have finally a respite. So that's the week in psychic weather. The Stalingrad of the psyche. Dig in and get ready to get out and start mobilizing and moving forward to take both our society back and your life back. Thank you.
Is it bad? Is it great? Are you happy? Are you irate? The weekend psychic weather.
And I just kind of wanted to ask.